How's everybody doing? The week is winding down. Been a pretty interesting week for me, an eventful one. I have been on the road for the last week or so. And if you caught my last video, I hit a stress bump where I locked the keys in the trunk of my car. And although that set me back for a little bit, I was able to identify a growth moment. Last couple of months, I've been working on just, my personality, behavior, trying to be better. And through all of this, I got to be honest with you, it has been enlightening. So I got a lot to cover with you today. And if you find this information helpful, like it, subscribe. And if there's someone else, though, that you think could benefit from what I'm sharing, please forward this to them. All right. So buckle up. We're going to dive right in. Got a lot to cover. Hope you find it useful. So it's natural, we think of hospitals, medical facilities, rehab facilities, maybe not so much rehab facilities, but skilled nursing facilities, we think of them as being some of the cleanest places on the planet. And the reality is they're not. They strive to be, but they're not. And it's just as likely for you to pick up an infection or some type of, bug in one of these places as you are going into any elementary or kindergarten classroom. I'm totally serious about that. And I don't say that based on any type of medical knowledge or research. It's just based on my own experience as an engaged parent and also as someone who visits a lot of facilities. They're actually hiring people who are skilled at controlling, eliminating, and preventing contaminations and infectious spreads. And it's a challenge every day because it really all depends upon whether or not the hospital staff are following their own rules, regulations, standards, guidelines, whatever you want to call them, and whether or not we, as the public coming into these places, are adhering to the rules. Now, I spent a lot of time over the last week in an ICU. So I was required to put on a gown, put on a mask, put on gloves. And I know a lot of people, especially coming off of COVID, say, you had to put on a mask. Well, I want you to just challenge yourself with this question. Have you ever gone into a hospital room and seen the patient wearing a mask? No. It's usually the people visiting, it's usually the people providing care. And the reason for that is, I think, pretty simple. Since there is no skin to skin contact or exchange of fluids, then the only other means of contamination or infection is through the nose, right? So, I groomed myself up. You can see I cleaned up my act since the last time I posted a video, but the nose hair is not in the frame, but it's there. And point being is, if you are grooming yourself, if you are trimming yourself, you don't take it all the way down to the skin. You leave some there because it serves a purpose. Even Stephen King had the foresight to utilize nose filters rather, as a foil subject in the book The Running Man. So every facility has its own protocols. And sometimes those protocols are going to make you feel uncomfortable. They're going to challenge you. If you are used to having your way, you're in a different environment. They're there to treat many. You're there for the one. Just keep that in mind. Keep the patient's care at the center of all that you're doing. That's my recommendation to you. Because, I mentioned before, my mom actually had to go into a skilled nursing facility after coming out of a hospital. And actually, she was transported from the hospital to the skilled nursing facility by ambulance. Never got in my car, had not been in her apartment, had not been in my home, anywhere but the hospital. But they got her there. They checked her for lice. They checked her for bed bugs. Now imagine that. You're coming out of a hospital and you are actually being physically inspected. And I mentioned this before, your privacy and your dignity are some of the first things that are on the table when you go into a situation where someone else has to care for you. Just being candid here, it is not a very comfortable situation and it is highly stressful. So it's up to us, those of us who are, caring for our families, to keep in mind this is all for their health. It's all for their benefit. People who work in these skilled nursing facilities and these medical facilities, they're there for a purpose. They're there to help people get better. So give them a little bit of grace and just think about it first before you react. So the other thing I want to talk to you about is making sure that you are exercising good hygiene when taking notes, when responding to correspondence. I had a situation turn up this past week where I had to respond to two jury notices, one state, one federal, and the rules are different in both cases. And actually, I'm not going to name the state that I was in when I was taking care of these items because I don't want anyone to make any false assumptions. But I will tell you this: the systems do not generally speak to one another. So if you are working on trying to get someone excused or getting them permanently removed from the jury pool, just bear in mind, state may not talk to federal, federal may not talk to state, and they may have different requirements for how you go about this process. The situation that I was in, on one side, I had to go online and complete all the questionnaires and make sure that they understood that I was filling this out on behalf of X person. On the other hand, I had to actually fill out a paper form and get a doctor's note and give them other information because they do take it seriously. I know some people say, well, I got this jury notice and I'm just going to ignore it. And, they're not going to come after me. It's like people with the photo tickets, right? They don't serve me, they can't catch me. Listen, why put yourself in that position? Why put the patient in that position where they come out of, being cared for, being incapacitated for an extended period of time, and all of a sudden they got a warrant because you didn't follow up? And with that in mind, be diligent about the fact that you own this responsibility. One of the things that I do is I keep a mail log. I keep a call log. I already talked to you about taking notes about conversations, medications, treatments, outcomes. But if you're also taking the responsibility of, taking care of the mail and shepherding those responses, make sure you're also documenting them and documenting them clearly. And again, with all of your documentation, make sure you keep it in a form or format that you can easily hand off in case something happens to you. God forbid. Couples, all right, coming into the doctor's office. I saw a lot of elderly couples, one person in a wheelchair, another person slowly pushing it. And it prompted me to have the conversation with a social worker. Hey, how often do you see this? And, do you offer resources? Do you offer them any type of help? Because, I saw the van out there, Access, senior rides, and keep in mind, senior citizens, not all senior citizens use smartphones, okay? They're not just going to go plug in an Uber. And then on top of that, are they really going to be comfortable getting into a car with a stranger? It's tough. And the reason I bring this up is because as I watch, this one particular couple, man, this lady was struggling. And one of the things that the social worker told me is that while they know that there are resources available to help them, a lot of them are too ashamed to ask because they have family members who are simply not engaged. So they're having a struggle every day, having an illness of their own, and shepherding their wife or their husband to the doctor's office. So one of the things, it's not tracked either, but this social worker was telling me that based on the people that she meets on a regular basis, she was amazed to find how many people are behind on getting prescriptions, getting appointments, miscommunications, because they're simply not able to handle all of it at one time. It's overwhelming and it's burdensome. And when you think about today's environment, sorry, that was my phone. When you think about today's environment where everything is done digitally, right? I just finished signing some documents not too long ago, via DocuSign. Now, yeah, and I want to go back to that because I mentioned earlier when you're signing documents, keep a log. You're going to get communications from doctors, from medical facilities in all formats: mail, text. Those communications are going to happen with every available channel because they're always going to use every resource or means to reach the responsible person. Let me give you two tips on that. When it comes to documenting text messages, today's smartphones, you can take recordings. Make sure you do that. I've had to do it and bring people on the, call people to the carpet because they didn't follow through. And they say, oh, well, I didn't get that, or that didn't happen. They wouldn't have done that. Oh, yeah, they did. I got a video of it right here. So, I record text messages, keep them in a special folder on my phone. When it comes to signing correspondence, One of the worst things you can do is just skim that material. And I know it's a lot, it can be overwhelming. But one of the things that I highly suggest that you do is to request a printable copy. Not all DocuSign documents are printable. Okay. Don't believe me. You'll believe me when you run into it. But it's best, especially when you are having to, check boxes that relate to advanced directives or any type of financial responsibility. You don't understand it or you can't read it clearly, the lines are all muddled, you're trying to read it on a smartphone. No, do the right thing. And if the folks who are working with you are interested in doing the right thing, they're going to understand, and you're not going to have to, encounter any resistance when you ask for a printable version of a document. And then the second thing I would suggest you do when you receive that document, keep one of these handy. It's a highlighter. One of the things that I will typically do is read a document backward. Reading a document backwards breaks the monotony of seeing words that you think are common, and it also causes you to review the context. If there's something that you don't understand, rather than making a bunch of scribbles and notes, highlight it. That way, you can always find it, and you can thoughtfully write a couple of words that are going to trigger whatever questions you need to ask. Okay, keep that in mind. All right. Hey, quick PSA to my seniors out there. Yes, I do know you're there. I look at the analytics. If you need help or know of someone who needs help and they don't know where to turn, there are plenty of resources at the federal and the local level. So I'm going to pin some resource information in the comments, and also bear in mind, social services exist in every county, every municipality. Your local law enforcement agency may have resources which are dedicated to community outreach. I know in my neighborhood, in my community, they do such a thing. In fact, I'm going to come back later on and tell you about Dear Alice Smith, a little old lady I met who was suffering from dementia, came to me with $17,000 in cash and wanted me to buy her a car. Yeah, let that marinate. So there's help out there for you, and I'm going to share some of what I know too in the comments. So hope you found today's video helpful, if not enlightening. Listen, we all find ourselves in situations where we have to stretch. We're uncomfortable. Get comfortable being uncomfortable. You got this. You can handle it. Keep lifting as you climb. I'll see you next time.